So we've spoken with the owner and they're comfortable for us to now, we've got really clear instructions as to what we need to do, and they're comfortable to meet us at the pre-vacate inspection, or they're okay for us to go off and do that on our own. So now what we're doing is, after we've got really clear instructions from the owner, what we're going to do is now have a chat with the tenant. So the conversation with the tenant sort of would go like this. We've received their notice to vacate. We've checked that it's valid, it's okay, they've given us the right amount of time. If they are in arrears, we're going to talk to them about that. So when speaking with the renter, it's vital that you cover the following topics. Establish with the renter that all of the renters on the lease will be vacating on the date specified in the notice. If you've got multiple, so you've got a shared accommodation, you've got say 2 couples or 4 singles, will everyone be vacating on that same day? We also want to talk, and I'll go through that in a moment, the difference between their vacate date and their handover date. So vacate's the date they move out. Handover date is the date after it's all been, property's been cleaned, repairs done, everything's up to date, keys are all returned, and the property is ready to be let again. That's when they hand over. So difference between, and I want you to encourage you to try and use different terminology between vacate date and handover date. So we want to make sure that all the renters are moving out on the same day. Acknowledge that you've received a written notice and inform the renter that you've spoken to the rental provider and that the notice has been accepted, and that you'll confirm this in writing. Now, there is actually a provision within the Act that once someone gives a notice to vacate, it can't be changed, and there's no obligation on the rental provider once they've received notice to vacate. If the renter comes back and says, say 2 weeks later, I know I want to change because I don't want to move out because I can't find anywhere, there's no obligation for the rental provider to maintain and continue with their tenancy. They've actually provided written notice, it's been accepted, then the obligation is that they will be leaving. So unless of course it's by mutual agreement. So it's really important that you say, we've received your written notice, informed the owner has accepted this, and we will be confirming this in writing. If the notice is not in accordance with the lease conditions, then it's really important to speak with the renter and inform them about this. It may be a break lease, or it may be a transfer as opposed to a end of lease. Now, often, particularly if you've got an inexperienced renter, the one that hasn't rented a number of properties, they may think that they have to give 28 days notice irrespective of what's left on the lease term. So, of course, in a periodic lease, 28 days is more than enough or the minimum requirement, and in a fixed term, it's 28 days prior to the end of the fixed term. So it's really important that you go through and try and help and educate the tenants along the way. Ask the renter if they've found somewhere else to live, and if not, then it might be an opportunity for you to try and direct the renter through to other properties that are available on your rental list. Of course, if they're good tenants. If they're not good tenants, then you probably wouldn't suggest that. Explain to the renter that you will send them a rent to vacate checklist. It's like an online presentation. This presentation should be sent to each of the renters. Now, if you've got 4 different renters, send it to all 4 of them. Don't send it to one and expect it to be shared. There's also a rent to vacate procedure that will be posted to them, or maybe downloaded from the agency's website. So have some details ready that you can send those out straight away, and say, here's the checklist, here's the cleaning, here's the tradespeople, and go through all of this when you do your pre-vacate inspection as well. Explain to the renter that the rental provider intends to re-advertise the property and re-let it to the next renter. Very important, because then we need to then make sure we're holding them to those particular dates. Inform them that the property will be posted onto the internet, informing prospective renters about the availability date. If there's to be a board erected, you need to let them know about that as well. You may initiate the discussion determining if vacate date noted on the form is the day they intend to return the keys or the day they're moving out. It's a good opportunity to discuss the cleaning and handover process. So just on that, I'll elaborate a little bit further. So my suggestion here would be that you've probably got so if a renter sends you a notice to vacate and it's got a set date of say 28 days, part of the phone conversation with the renter is, are you moving out on that 28th day? Or is that the day that you intend to return the keys back after cleaning, steam cleaning if required, all the maintenance has been done, all the lights have been checked, and is that the day that you'll be handing the keys back over? If not, then maybe you need to add, instead of 28 days, maybe take it to 31, 32, 33 days, so that you've got that little bit of a buffer to enable you to have the property cleaned, and then we can go and have a look at it as agents. And then if you need to go back, then you've still got access to the property. Now, if they then turn around and say, no, I'm handing back the keys on the same day, if they're telling you this today at the 28th day mark, when they're handing the notice, I'm handing the keys back the same day and moving out, then alarm bells should ring for you straight away that you've got to try and educate them. Well, no, that's actually physically not possible, because if you're moving out, someone then has to do the cleaning, and then you've probably got to get maybe steam cleaning, then you've got to get some other cleaning as well, and potentially some repairs. This is why a pre-vacate inspection is so important. It's vital that the renter receives written communication from the property manager. Inform them of the following. It's really important that you keep a really good audit, and it's only in the instance where something goes wrong and the renter later on changes their mind, or that goes to VCAT, or that becomes an issue. So you want to be able to rely upon your audit trail. The anticipated final rent amount, so make sure that that's actually clear, and you explain to them that that's the date that they're handing back. So before handing back the keys, not the day they move out necessarily. So before you go and just calculate it to the 28th day, as I said, you might want to get them to adjust that to, say, 32, 33, 34 days, and that's when the final vacate rental amount will be, because it's important for you to explain to the renter that they will be paying rent up until you've got possession of the property back to re-let it to the next person. That's why it's so critical to inform them that the owner will be releasing the property, and the vacate date and the new availability date will be set as this date. The vacate checklist and renter procedure, need to explain that, send that through to them. List the obligations to the renter at the conclusion of the lease prior to returning the property back. Particularly if you've got inside of your condition report, maybe cleaning receipts. If you had a pet clause, maybe there might be some steam cleaning, property cleaning, there might be gardening, there may be some garden maintenance, pool maintenance, whatever was required, their obligations. You might have had fumigation as part of your conditions of pet. Whatever it was, you need to make sure you refer that back to them and say, just wanted to reinforce these were the things that were required prior to the property being handed back. It's strongly advised to send a copy of the ingoing condition report back to them to explain to the renter that you'll be referring to this document when the vacate inspection is conducted, to compare the condition of the property against the condition at the commencement of the tenancy. Why would we have the copy only and expect that the renter is going to continue to refer back to that? This is where we can try and alleviate some of our problems with with renters at vacates. If we give them the same list that we're going to refer through to, then there's more likelihood, and a good checklist and a pre-vacate, and we're really clear about the handover, there's less likelihood there's going to be any real issues. Send the renter a copy of their rental ledger, especially if they are behind in their rent. You need to make sure you clearly state what money's in arrears, and that rent needs to be paid prior to the final vacate date, and that if it is in arrears, it's going to potentially impact their ability to get other properties in the future. Explain that the rent is calculated to the date in which the full set of keys are returned. That's really, really important inside of there. Explain that the renters will not be offered an opportunity to collect the keys and return to the property to rectify the items. This would be a continuation of lease. So the handover, again, if you're really clear the difference between a handover and the day in which they're vacating, then there should be no need for them to come back. If the renter is required to go back to the property for cleanliness purposes to rectify anything about the property, then they will be charged a daily rate of rent and charged an hourly rate for the property management staff to accompany them whilst the issues are rectified. Under no circumstances are the keys to be returned to the renter. Now, this becomes a real company policy. It's up to you what you want to do, but this is my suggestion, is that you're really clear in the beginning and saying to the renters, we won't be offering you opportunities to come back. We're going to tell you, here's the checklist, here's the ingoing condition report. here's the conditions that you need to meet, your cleaning, your fumigation, your garden, whatever it may be. We're going to go through this, and we're also go through this in a pre-vacate. We're also then going to highlight any of the areas that need to be rectified from a maintenance point of view. Window lights, light fittings that haven't been, light globes that aren't working. There might be particular cleanliness that needs to be done. So these are the things that need to be really, really clear. You should also talk to the renter and inform them about it's their responsibility, their sole responsibility to contact the utility companies to arrange for a final meter reading and also redirect mail. Try and organise that the connection is actually continued on for 2 or 3 days after the vacate, after the handover, so that you can at least then go through and do your vacate inspection with power. Okay, so now that you've personally spoken with both the rental provider and the renter, it's vital that you create a task in the PM software to allocate them to the different team members so everyone knows what they've got to do, and update the vacate date in the trust software. Work through any overdue rents or credits. Inform the trust account manager of the notice to vacate. Prepare and send a letter to the renter acknowledging their notice to vacate. Prepare and send a letter to the owners acknowledging and confirming them of the renter's intention to vacate. Reassess and review, assess and prepare any new management authorities if required, other documents as well. Provide renter with a vacate pack, checklist, online videos, condition report. Check with the owner's corporation to ensure that a board can be erected. You need to sometimes seek written approval. Review the internet ad. Ensure that the photos and copying are current and can be used. So you don't want to be using photographs from 3, 4, 5 years ago if the property doesn't look like that anymore. Schedule the internet ad to be loaded. Ensure that the owners are sent a listing on the same day that it goes online. So as soon as it goes live, send the URL through to the owner. And this will actually overcome, if the property's sitting there vacant, it'll overcome the objection from an owner who comes back at a later stage and says, the only reason the property is vacant is because the ad was poor, the photographs were really bad. But if you send it to them on day one, then you've sent it, and if they don't say anything back, then they've almost got consent. Inform the leasing consultant of the vacate. Plan their pre-vacate inspection. If you use a whiteboard, then put it on the whiteboard as a vacate. If you've got a electronic whiteboard or an internal whiteboard on Google Docs, then you need to update that as well. Prepare and send a letter to request access to the renter to conduct a pre-vacate inspection. This letter must be stored in the renter file. It's not acceptable just to have a verbal permission. So you don't necessarily have to send a letter to them and ask them for written permission. You can speak to them over the phone and say, can we come and do a pre-vacate inspection 48, 72 hours after you receive notice to vacate? And then you can just send them through a letter saying, as per our conversation on Tuesday, you confirm that it's okay for us to come through. Keep that copy, send that through to them and keep that copy as well. Work through and schedule open for inspection times with the renter and the leasing staff. So before you get to the pre-vacate inspection, already have a mapped out plan of when you think you're going to be doing them. It doesn't have to be down to the last time, the 15-minute interval, but it does need to be, okay, on these next 3 Saturdays, these next 3 Wednesdays, this is what we will be doing. Arrange for tradespeople to prepare any quotes for any maintenance. And again, you might want to get the trades. If you've looked back through your condition report, your routine inspections, and you've looked back through any notes or any repairs or maintenance that haven't been done, you might want to get them to organise that in the next 28 days. And at the same time, you also may want to get your gas, electric and smoke compliance done in the next 28 days, rather than putting the onus onto the new renter. So you want to get those done. Arrange for floor plans, walk-through videos or professional photographs. Now, you might not be doing that at the pre-vacate, but you might say, okay, well, the property photos aren't that great. What we are going to do in that little gap between the handover and the new tenant, we're going to schedule to do some photographs. And you might want to get the property clean, and that's when you're doing the photos. Place the property on the rental list. After you've spoken to the rental provider to seek instructions, you would then have the following tasks to arrange. Prepare and send updated owner's documents if needed. So you've got owner's instruction, management authority, you've got property safety compliance, rental minimum standards, and of course the disclosure. Coordinate the property to be loaded onto the internet. The PM is ultimately responsible to make sure the photos and the description is accurate and representative of the property. Always ask for permission if you're going to be using the photographs with the renter's furniture. Once this ad has been loaded on the internet, it's the responsibility of the property manager to ensure that the correct information is noted and that the ad complies with fair trading. Arrange for a full lease board, calculate your rent, and then the property manager should be making a diary note with a reminder for alert for about 7 days. They put that into their diary, but also I'd be adding it into the receptionist diary and probably leasing diary, so we're really well aware that the property is going to be vacating. Put it in at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. Then once you know when the renter's going to be actually dropping off the keys, you can move it, but just put it in at this stage. It's also a good opportunity for the property manager to also reconfirm rent payments, cancellation of rent, direct debit, steam cleaning, furniture. This is all happens in the pre-vacate with regards to move in, move out as well. It's good agency practice to include the leasing consultant reception trust, as I said, into the diary, into the reminder. Okay. Now, when you go through, I'll talk to you in the next video around what to do inside the pre-vacate inspection. That's what we're up to next. Thanks, guys.